Welcome to Classic Car Garage, the Classic Car Restoration How-To television show. We're glad you could join us again this week. Well, our Project Mustang is coming along quite nicely here. We're back in the paint booth at Tom's Custom Auto Body, and today we're going to be painting the engine compartment here of our Project California Special Mustang. We'll also be undercoating the car, and we're going to be adding these Q pads, noise and vibration deadening panels, to the inside of the car that'll help keep the noise down and make it a nice tight ride as well too. First of all, Tom, how you doing today?
Great, Jeff. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again too. I guess the first thing we want to do here with our project car is to mask it off, and I see that you pretty much got most of the body completely masked off except for this area right here. Let's run through the technique for the home viewer as to how they go about masking this part of the car.
Alrighty, we're almost done. What we do first is outline the areas that we want masked off with 3/4 inch tape. That's a real familiar tape that a lot of body shops use.
Okay, and we want to mask the edges just like this.
Just simply run it over the edge and tear it and run it right along the edge there.
And we want to do this. Why do we want to mask this off like this with masking tape? Why wouldn't we just attach our paper and put that masking tape right here?
The paper machine has attached tape to it, and it's hard to bend around all these nooks and crannies and make it nice and neat. So what we do with this is just outline the edge so we've got a 3/4 inch space to play with rather than, you know, trying to do fine detailing with a paper machine.
Okay, now we're using a paper machine here, and most home hobbyists won't have that paper machine, but you can simply just buy the rolls of paper in most automotive paint stores, right?
Yes.
And just tear it off and use it if you will.
Yes.
How you're supposed to use it here.
Yes. This is a neat trick that we use in the body shop too, and it's for taping off wiring and steering columns and things like that that are just hard to tape up. You simply take out the tin foil because it's self-forming, and rip off a little bit there. And then we've got some wires here on the end of the fan motor, and you just wrap it around there, and it just saves a lot of time.
Hey, that is a really neat trick, and I see you've done that with the wires here. We've even done the steering wheel that way as well too.
The whole steering column.
Okay, so it's time to grab a sheet of paper there and begin to tape this off, right?
Ready? As we said before, the tape comes on the paper. The machine applies it right to the edge of the paper, and then you just put it down. It's nice and fast. Saves a lot of time inside the spray booth, so we're not in here any longer than we have to be.
I should say so. And this is actually a different type of paper than regular newspaper. This is actually wax coated on one side here, and that's going to prevent the paint from soaking through this. You don't want to use newspaper because you indeed will have a problem with that. I think I am going to need probably another sheet of paper on this side.
This is kind of like wrapping Christmas presents.
Yeah.
You want to have as little of pleats as possible.
Right.
So.
I was never too good at that, but I think this is going to be fine, really.
The more pleats, the more dust. The more dust, the more problems in the paint.
Right. Now, once again, we're actually painting the interior and the engine compartment of the car after painting the body. Why do we want to do it in that order? Because a lot of people would want to do it the other way.
Well, the reason why you do that is once the body is right where you want it, all rubbed out and color sanded and buffed and looking real pretty, when we come back with the black, I only want the black to go in the areas inside of the engine compartment and places like that. Whereas the red, you may have gotten a little overspray that blew through in places, and then you wouldn't want that on an area like an engine compartment that you're not going to touch. Once it's painted, it's done.
So that's the reason why we do it in this order. And that ought to just about do it. So we finished taping off and masking off our project car here. We've even masked off and taped off our front discs here. You want to be careful that you get these things masked off. You don't want to get paint down there in those discs. We've even masked off our jack stands. They've already got 15 coats of paint on them already. So the next project here is to install our Undercoat Q pads here to reduce the noise and vibration. And Tom right now is getting ready to put those on. Tom, what are you doing in there?
Well, what I'm doing, Jeff, is I'm installing these Q pads on the drive shaft tunnel inside of here.
Okay, now where do we want to put the Q pads in the inside of this car?
Inside of any area that has moving parts underneath, like the drive shaft, inside the wheel wells.
Okay,
like that.
so we're going to put this over there on top of that wheel well and over here as well too. And that should pretty much dampen the sound inside this car. Now, the luxury cars of today have a very solid clunk when you close the door, and that's because they have these sound deadening pads all over the car, right?
Yes, one of the biggest differences between these old cars of yesteryear and the new cars that we have today are these sound deadening pads.
Okay, so if we really wanted to do this up, we would put these everywhere in the car, but we just want to dampen the sound a little bit while still making it sound somewhat like it should back in 1966.
Yes.
Okay, so the next step is to peel the adhesive back off that, I would imagine, and stick that down, but that's really not going to adhere to the contours in the metal here, is it?
Well, what we've got is a little high spot right there, and neat trick for that, you just place the Q pad over the top of that, and you'll see, you don't want to press that down too much, but we'll heat that up with the heat gun, and the heat gun gets it fairly warm, but it forms really nicely once you get that warm. It's just like, you know, clay.
And you really need to use a heat gun, don't you? A hairdryer just doesn't quite get hot enough, does it?
Yes, the heat gun is what you need. It generates a lot more heat.
Okay, so Tom, we'll let you finish putting the Q pads here on the inside of our Mustang, and that should sound great when we're done with it. Now, when we come back here on Classic Car Garage, we're going to begin to prep the engine compartment and prepare it for paint. Don't go away. There's more Classic Car coming your way next. Welcome back to Classic Car Garage. Well, Tom's back in the mixing station right now, mixing up the Undercoat semi-gloss paint that we're going to be using on the engine compartment and the other components here of our project car. But before we get to that point, you want to be very careful to clean up and prep the metal that we're going to be painting over. Now, you don't need to pickle the metal the way we did before. What we're using here is a Spies Hecker product called 7090. What this is a pre-cleaner, and this is going to be cleaning up any of the dust, dirt, or oils, fingerprints, whatever that there is on this sheet metal. This is going to take it off. It's really simple to use, and you can get this at most automotive paint stores that carry Spies Hecker product. All you do with this is put some in a spray bottle like this and simply just spray it on like so. Make sure that you get it every place, and then just take a cloth and wipe it off. Just wipe it off thoroughly, making sure that you get as much off as possible. And all you want to do after that is simply let it air dry for a little while until it's completely dry. Then you are ready to paint. This is something that's going to take a little while, but of course, as you remember, the key to a nice paint job is always the preparation. And this looks pretty clean now, but wait till you see it once we begin to spray the paint on there. And Tom is just about ready with the Undercoat paint. We'll be applying that in just a couple of moments. Okay, we've finished cleaning our engine compartment with our Spies Hecker 7090 pre-cleaner. Things are looking pretty good right now, and it's time to spray the engine compartment now with our Undercoat semi-gloss black. Right, Tom?
Right.
And you're using our new DeVilba spray gun here once again. I noticed that this has the bag in it, and this is going to allow us to paint upside down and so forth, right?
Yes, because there's so many inverted areas on the car, we went to the bag system so I can do that without having to stop and reload the gun, and I can actually get upside down with this gun.
Right. Now, you don't necessarily have to use this gun with the bag, though, do you?
No, you don't.
Okay, but we're using it this time for this particular purpose. Now, you've got to put the top on, though, right? Okay, so there's no primer, there's nothing else that needs to be done to this engine compartment. The 7090 cleans it up well enough to go ahead and spray our semi-gloss black here, right?
Yes.
Okay, now there's a proper spray technique for those people who have never painted before. On any spray gun, there are actually two positions on the trigger, right?
Yes. There's the half trigger, which is basically just air.
That's just air.
And then full trigger, which is going to allow the paint. So you've got a primary and secondary trigger on here. The reason for that is blending in edges and places where if you were to go full throttle or full gun all the way to the edge, you would get a run there.
Right,
so you'd
exactly.
want to back off the paint and just have air come out.
Right, and once again, our gun here has about 40 pounds of pressure right down here at the trigger, right?
Yes.
And that's adjustable right down here.
Yeah, on the regulator, not on the end of the gun.
Okay, right at the regulator. Well, let's get started then. I guess this is our, what, tack and a whack job here?
Yep, basically a tack coat and then one full coat or a tack and a whack.
Okay, we're going to spray it once till it's tacky, then whack it again, and that should be our job there. So I'll tell you what, why don't you get started in there, and I'll finish up the outsides where it's not as critical, where people don't see in case I don't do as good a job as you will.
Great.
Okay, let's get started. Okay, Tom, that's it as far as the whack coat goes. We'll let Shorty finish this. He'll go on the inside and crawl under there, do some of the areas that we couldn't get at this point in time. You know, using a quality spray gun like this to build this really makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Sure does.
I mean, I was spraying upside down, sideways, and this thing still had the proper amount of pressure right here at the tip. Now, we've done our tack and a whack on the engine compartment. Next thing is to let this dry, but we're actually going to accelerate the drying process by using our InProtect heater here, right?
What we're going to do now is bring the InProtect heater into play here, and it should take about 10 minutes, and this thing will be ready to hang fenders on.
Okay, once again, this is another one of those body shop tools that really speeds up the process.
This is a great tool.
Okay, Tom, so the InProtect is showing us two different displays here. What are those?
The 63 degrees is the actual temperature of the metal. The little electric eye in there senses the temperature of the metal, and this is the temperature that we preset with this little indicator right here. When the surface of the metal gets up to the surface to this temperature here, it'll regulate and stay at exactly that temperature.
And we've set it to do that for a set length of time, right?
It's set for about 15 minutes right now.
Okay, sounds great. We'll take a quick break and come back in 15, see how we're doing.
Okay.
Well, Tom, it's time to put some undercoating here on our Project Mustang. Now, it looks pretty good where we've sprayed the semi-gloss, but actually the undercoat is going to make this look a lot better, isn't it?
Yes, you can see the factory didn't put much undercoating on here, so in turn you have a car that sounds a little tinny when you open and close the hood and things, and when you're driving it down the road. What we're going to do now is we're going to apply a real heavy coat of undercoating inside of here to give it more sound deadening and to keep the road and debris and things from hurting this metal surface underneath.
Road noise and rock chips, corrosion, things like that. We're real lucky here in Southern California that we don't have a lot of this, but this undercoating is just going to be the added insurance that we need. Yep. Now, there's nothing really fancy about putting it on. It's a simple can of Evercoat undercoating. It's a rubberized undercoating, and you simply use it with a gun.
Yep.
And it's that simple.
Application gun that just screws onto the quart can, and you just apply a nice heavy coat inside there.
Okay, Tom, let's get started.
All righty.
All right, Tom, that looks pretty good. Actually, that makes a world of difference there with all the texture. Now, I noticed that you didn't spray down here in these arms nor the coil springs or the shock absorber. We don't really need to do that, do we?
No, and the Mustang wasn't all taken apart. When they did these on the production line, all that was painted and the undercoating was put on all at the exact same time.
Okay, so this should be Concord correct, but of course, we'll let the judges tell us whether it is or not. But of course, I think this looks great just the way it is, and obviously it's a lot better than it was as it rolled off the factory line.
Yeah, they really couldn't afford to do this much labor inside of a production line car.
Right, and I really hate to share with the viewers how much money has gone into this car so far. Maybe we'll do that on the last show.
All right.
Now, when we come back here on Classic Car Garage, we've got the new product segment, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Classic Car Garage. Before we leave you today, we've got some really neat new products to show you. Everyone knows that cutting spot welds is a very tedious and time-consuming task, and if you've ever used one of those little spot weld cutting drill bits in your drill, you know what I'm talking about. Well, the Spottle Company in Anaheim, California has solved that problem in a big way. This is called the Spottle, and this is a spot weld cutting tool, and you've seen us use this on a previous episode of Classic Car Garage, and it really cuts down on the effort and the time. Now, this particular tool has been in use for over 15 years and it operates just as good as new, but Spottle has come out with a new improved version of their spot weld cutter called the Spottle 2, and this is it right here. One of the major advancements on this tool is the fact that the head here actually swivels or rotates like this so that you can get it into places that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get it into. This is a really neat tool, and this is a little over $500 from the Spottle Company in Anaheim, California. Now, if you do much welding, right here is the answer for you. This is from Arc One in Taunton, Massachusetts. This is the Shademaster auto darkening welding helmet. Of course, when it senses light, it automatically darkens so that you can eliminate the flipping up and down that you would with a conventional welding helmet. This one even has a darkening switch over here so you can adjust the level of darkening. Now this is going to be a little over $200. It's a great deal from Arc One in Taunton, Massachusetts. Well, that's about all the time we have for you on today's Classic Car Garage. We hope you've learned a little something, and we hope that you'll join us again next week.